back chit chat video, and that's because I recently completed a year of being married. And if you, like me, just recently got married, or if you have plans of doing so, this video may be useful to you as good to have information. Or if you experienced or are experiencing similar things as I am, then you'll know that you're not alone. I think that when it comes to the first year of marriage, there's just a lot of pressure around this period. Some people say that it's the honeymoon phase, so this is the best it'll ever be, and then after that it's all downhill. And some people also say that the first year is the toughest, and if you get through that, then the rest of your marriage is sorted. And some people just don't know what to expect, and I think I fall into that category where I didn't really know what to expect going into my first year of marriage. And if you, like me, have not lived with your partner before getting married, were in a long distance relationship for a certain amount of time, or if you just haven't been with your partner long enough, like I'm talking about years and years where you are super familiar with them and your relationship is just very mature, then I think you might find what I have to say useful. Before I get on with the video, guys, do subscribe to my channel. I plan on sharing a lot more about relationships. If that's something that you think you might be interested in, then you should definitely subscribe. And also, don't forget to click the notification bell, because that'll inform you every time I post a new video. The first point that I wanted to talk about is how you will find the need to get used to each other's habits, timings, and rhythms. So just imagine this. Someone has a habit of waking up at a particular time, the other person wakes up at another time. One of you prefers to eat food at a certain time, and the other one prefers to do it at a different time. One of you may have the habit of leaving your shoes outside the shoe rack, but the other one is really specific about where your shoes go. Someone might like a minimal space where you only have what is needed, and one of you may prefer a slightly more cluttered place with artwork and small pieces here and there, and a library maybe with a lot of books. Another way preference plays out is what you would like to do on the weekends. Like, one of you may want to go out on the weekends and spend a lot of time outside the house, but one of you may just want to stay back at home and watch a lot of Netflix and relax. When you are dating, you may not really be exposed to a person's habits or rhythms, because as I was mentioning, if you, like me, have not lived with your partner, it's something that kind of shows itself only when you start living together. In a dating phase, it's more about getting out and meeting each other, so you're leaving all of your habits at home for the most part. Even when you're over at each other's place, maybe it's a completely different equation. So living together really exposes all of your habits. So initially, you may find yourself figuring out a way to not get into each other's space too much, but at the same time spend a sufficient amount of time together, and trying to find a way to do activities together, like eating together or maybe going for your workout together. So it takes some time to get used to that, and that's not really something that you're going to by default know how to do. So that was definitely something that I experienced in some sense very early on when I got married. My next point is about establishing roles and responsibilities. So this is more applicable to if you are living together away from family and in another country where you may not have a lot of domestic help, but even otherwise, things like who's going to oversee the cleaning of the house, who's going to cook, who's going to do the dishes, who's going to take out the trash, who's going to take care of the plants, who's going to pay what bills, who plans vacations. These are all small things that come up every single day, and so having like clear roles and responsibilities make it a lot easier to function together. It's very different from like a flatmate equation where a lot of your responsibility ends with your room and maybe the common space a little bit, like the kitchen or the hall. Here you are collectively responsible for the entire house and for all the activities that you engage in. Again, these are things that you are not going to by default be good at, and it's actually going to take verbalizing it and having the conversation of, okay, who's going to do what and at what cadence. And also, if you forget to do what you're responsible to do, it affects the both of you, so you're going to have to pay extra attention to these small things. So I think that just upfront, you'll find the need to divide roles and responsibilities. And while it's definitely a nice phase of getting to know each other and the romance of it, there's also the element of these domestic things and tasks that need to be sorted out. So that becomes a huge part of your daily life as well. The next point that I want to talk about is moving from a you and I mentality to an us mentality. And I'll explain this with the help of an example. So let's just say that A in the relationship gets a job opportunity in another city, and they are really keen on taking it up because it is financially a great move. It is a natural progression in their career, and it's going to basically set them up really nicely. And let's say B has a job in the city that you're currently in and things are going okay, but if you decide to move, then it would mean that they would have to sacrifice that to make the move happen. In a situation like that, to avoid any kind of conflict or later feelings of resentment, you'll find that you have to take that decision as a couple, looking at it as what is right for us. So that might look like B might say, hey, I kind of want to stay back because I think that my job is going really well and I need this and I want to continue here. In which case A would have to make the sacrifice, say no to that job offer, and then you continue in the city that you are currently living in. But if B says that, okay, moving can be on the cards and I would like to consider it, then you have to, as a couple, see if that decision is right for you. So this is something that I experienced in my relationship, where we decided that we would move to Singapore for a job opportunity that my partner had. And the way that we went about this is we literally drew up an Excel sheet and we put down both of our incomes. We also put down what our incomes might look like if we moved to Singapore. So that was pretty indicative that we would be financially stronger in Singapore and we would be able to make some savings. So collectively, it was a decision that made sense for us. So keeping all of those factors in mind, it made sense for us to make the move. So we made that decision as a couple. So you will find that early on, just as you're figuring out all of these other things, if you have to make a serious decision like this, then you will have to have the conversation of, okay, how do we approach this? Maybe literally put pen to paper and do the math and see what works for the both of you. And also, deciding to move in a situation like that is one big part of it, but then when you actually move, A might have a completely different experience with the move and B might go through a completely different set of emotions. So working through that as a couple also becomes an important factor. So that's something interesting to think about, which is moving from a me and you mentality to an us mentality. The next point on my list is having serious conversations about your finances. When you're married, you will start to have common goals together. It could be things like, we want to own a house, we want to own a car. So you will have to start having very serious conversations about what your collective savings are going to look like, expenditure is going to look like, and where you want to put your money and how you want to invest it. So again, it doesn't end up being like a flatmate relationship where you just put some common money in one account and then you use that for all of your spending. But it's a little bit more serious than that, where you sort of look to the future collectively and see what needs to be done with your finances. And it's definitely a complicated conversation to have, because unless one of you is a finance expert, you both have to figure it out. You both have to do the research and understand what are the right options for you. And you may even have a difference of opinion about what to do with your money. So then, do you invest separately or do you invest together? So what your finances are going to look like in the medium to long term is an important conversation that you will eventually end up having, and it gets pretty real. So I think that being mindful and deliberate to show up to that conversation in the right frame of mind and to take a decision together. So this next one is really interesting. That is consciously spend time with your new family. So if you, like me, got married and you had an opportunity to become close to your partner's mom and dad and your partner's immediate family, then you will eventually end up building a separate relationship with them that goes beyond you being their child's spouse. So when you establish that level of closeness, you have a responsibility to keep in touch with them regularly and to maintain and grow that relationship. And think about in your own life how you consciously have to prioritize talking to your own parents and your relatives. So consider that that responsibility will more or less double, because you have now welcomed a new family into your life and you will have to find the time to be in touch with them as well. So that was something that both of us, with our respective new families, we're slowly getting better at it. My next point is how you go about maintaining your friendships after you get married. You, of course, have your own set of friends, your partner has their own set of friends, and then you end up becoming friends with your partner's friends and they end up becoming friends with your friends. And interestingly, it And sometimes it is the case that you are so engaged and involved in your marriage that you may lose touch with your friends, and also you may find that you'll have to prioritize your friendships because you don't have that much spare time. So consciously thinking about that is something that also takes up a bit of mind space. So you will actively have to do maybe set up a schedule with your friends saying, hey, let's catch up like once a week, let's do like a video call. And to be honest, sometimes you may not like or get along with one of your partner's friends, or vice versa. So in that case, you need to figure out how you navigate that friendship then, and how you want to go about handling that relationship. These interesting things do end up happening over the course of your initial days, and you just have to navigate it through conversation and a level of understanding with each other, and trust and respect for your partner and your own friends as well. My last point, no, I mean my second last point, I think I could make a whole video about this because it is such a complicated topic, but it's about how you argue, and you will find that in the initial days you will have to find a way to argue better. And this, I think, applies to your entire marriage. It's probably not just a first year thing, but it's something that you will start training for in your first year. When you're seeing each other and dating, if you have an argument, you can always slam the door shut and leave. You can choose not to text that person or reach out to them for some time if you want some time to yourself, and if you want to go away somewhere and lick your wounds. But when it comes to being married, you can't really slam the door and disappear anywhere, because you're literally just going to go to the next room. And then it becomes quite challenging to be living in the same house and to be wanting some time and space to yourself. While that's okay, you also have to have the conversation pretty soon about resolving that fight and working through that fight. So I very quickly learn how to argue better, and that means that having a quicker turnaround time and just being able to suppress your ego a little bit and try to be understanding of each other, so you can empathize with each other, you can say your sorries, and you can move on. Because the truth is, arguments are going to happen. So instead of creating like an uncomfortable environment at home for a longer period of time, it's better to figure out how to argue better. And I can offer you, and I can give you an example, right? When something comes up and you feel like you're about to get into an argument, instead of using the words, why do you always fill in the blank, or stop doing fill in the blank, instead maybe you can try something like, hey, I'm feeling a certain way about this. It would be great if you could do blank to make me feel better. It would be great if you could understand where I'm coming from. Here's a potential way to handle it when it comes to this for me. Instead of approaching the situation pretty confrontationally and bunching up a bunch of things together and titling it as why do you always, it's better to state the problem and how it looks through your own eyes, and maybe offer a potential solution and say, hey, this is what would make me feel better. So that's just a quick example. It's obviously pretty generic. It's not going to be the solution to every argument, but that's just one of the interesting things that I learned and I really liked, so I wanted to share that with you. So my last point is, with everything that I just mentioned, clearly you have your hands full. There's a lot to learn. There is a lot to adjust and adapt to pretty quickly. So what happens is, most of the time, you would actually have to schedule your romantic time or consciously make time to go out and do things that enhance your relationship. In the first year of your relationship, you're trying to figure out all of these different things. And somewhere along the line, you might find that, hey, we've been so involved in figuring out all of this stuff that we haven't really consciously spent time together and just checked in on each other. So that's something that you're going to have to schedule into your week very consciously. So it can literally be something like, every Saturday night, we're going to have date night. It can be at home, it can be outside. Setting up that time makes sure that with everything that's going on around you, you can still show up on a Saturday night and know that it's time to set everything aside and just be together and have a nice time. So I think that's really important as well. But if you leave it to maybe just happen organically, it may not end up happening just because of all the things that I just explained. Creating moments like that make the entire journey super worth it and special. So yeah guys, these are just some of the points that I wanted to talk to you about. I don't know, give this video a like if you thought it was useful to you and if it was insightful. Ultimately, I think that the first year of your marriage is definitely a delightful, lovely phase. There's a lot of fun and there's a lot of interesting things that you learn about each other. I hope that this video helps take some of the pressure off in knowing that either you're not alone or you have a sense for what to expect going into your marriage, if it sounds similar to the scenarios that I spoke about. All in all, I think the first year of marriage is definitely great, but it does get better over time. The good news is every day is a new day to figure things out and to move forward. Guys, that's it for this video. I will be back with my next video very soon, but until then, I will see you. Bye.